Right, thank you everyone. My name is Cedric, so I'm from ConnectingDNA, and first of all, I would like everyone to give yourself a whole round of applause for being here tonight, this evening. Right, thanks for coming, and thanks for bearing with us with just some of the technical difficulties. As you can see, before I start my sharing, right, I'm going to guide you through a bit of a presentation towards what we do, as well as what genetics really means for parenting. Right, I really want you guys to understand why we actually did this event in the first place. So with this event in the first place, really because we totally believe that in our children, there are a lot of strengths that we need to be untapped. But sometimes if we don't understand the strengths enough and we misparent them in a way, it can become shadows. And when it becomes shadows, that's where then we have people like Yan Lu, people like Claudia and Shaza who can come in and help. But it's not something that we want to go there, because nowadays, as a parent myself, we don't want our child to be there. But there's always a risk. So as parents, we need to understand their natural strengths, and then we make sure that their strengths stay as strengths and not become shadows of their best potential. Okay? So with that said, today I'm going to give a very short talk before we go into the panel discussion. So I hope everyone bears with me. So I'm going to talk about how to unlock your child's potential and hidden strength through your DNA. Okay, but a little bit about me first. Like, why am I well qualified to share this with you? Right. So I would say I'm in the healthcare industry for 20 over years. Right. So I'm the founder of ConnectingDNA. I started ConnectingDNA about 5 years ago in 2021. Right. So being in healthcare for 20 over years, I've seen a lot of things, both good and bad. At the same time, on LinkedIn, I am known as the DNA Storyteller. So I tell stories about people's genes, which is quite fascinating. So if you want later, you can scan and you can add me. You can see some of the content I post on a weekly basis. Right, so a bit about ConnectingDNA. You heard about Psychology Blossom, you heard about Over the Rainbow. So ConnectingDNA, we are what is called a DNA wellness company. Right, so we are not just into wellness, but we want to promote wellness personalized to everyone's genetic. That's why it's called DNA wellness. It's nothing more personalized than your genetics, I can assure you of that. And of course, now coming to this, let me ask you guys here, right? I mean, how many of you guys here are parents? Raise your hands. Very good. So for those of you guys who never raise hands, does it mean to say that you are going to be a parent soon, or you are interested to be a parent? That's why you're here. Right? So okay, I guess everyone here is a parent or want to be a parent. Okay, that's very good. Okay, now being there, right, I'm sure you've seen cases where two kids, very bright kids, they go to school the same way, they study the same subject, they go to the same class, but somehow one kid is typically always performing better than the other. Why is that? Right? Of course, some people can say, oh, because of parenting, because of a better tutor, but fundamentally, I can tell you guys, genetics do play a part. And why genetics do play a part is because DNA is our biological blueprint. Right? It's a blueprint that we're born with, and it doesn't really change. Right? And a study did show in 2018, okay, 2018, many years ago, right, or 8 years ago, that based on these studies of a cohort of 12,000 people, or students, 12,000 students, right, they say that 60% of good grades comes because of genetic tendencies. Which tendencies matter? Like for example, some kids they naturally just like to learn more. And some kids, they can absorb information like a sponge. Some kids, they are just pretty good at math. And some kids cannot focus. All these are inbuilt into their own biology. And as parents and as educators, if we know that, we can personalize their experience, leading to more ideal outcomes, which is something later that we'll share. Okay? So what else can DNA inform us as parents? So of course the DNA can inform their physical attributes, whether they are good with sports, whether they are robust. You know, there's some kids, you go there, you run, then you hit the glass wall, they fall down, they come up, they run again. You see those before, right? Very hardy kids. Okay, these are physical attributes. Then there are some kids with a lot of energy, right? It can never be kept down. You ask them to sit still, they cannot sit still. These are also due to their metabolism. So there are some kids, they have really, really good skin. Not all kids have good skin, they have good skin at below the age of 3. After the age of like 5, 6, 7, 8, that's where all the pimples will come out already. All these are linked to genetics. Then we also have kids who are very sociable. We also have kids that's not so sociable, right? Understanding their natural wiring does help. And lastly, their mind. What goes on in their mind, right? Whether they are good with learning, whether they're creative, a lot of this is linked to their mental state and is also linked to genetics, which is why today, through the panel discussion later, we're here to explore together with everyone here. Okay? So, a child's DNA, ladies and gentlemen, like any of you guys here have more than one child? Raise your hand. Very good. Now I tell you guys, all of you guys, your child, once you're born, thanks to you and your partner's DNA, your child's DNA is come to earth, is set. It does not change. But even though it does not change, I can tell you, you can still influence it. You can still work with it. And that comes back to earlier the statistic on the 60% performance due to the children's genetics. Right? And so let's say, for example, who here sometimes feel your child is a bit lazy? My child, I feel, is quite lazy. Right? Who here feels your child is a bit lazy? Wow, okay, thank you for being very honest. Okay, give them a round of applause, please. It's not easy as a parent to admit your child is not lazy. My child, I tell you, is very lazy. Okay? But sometimes they are lazy doesn't mean to say it's bad. They are lazy just simply means they need more time to process. That's the way their brain works. But if you chase them, you rush them, what's happening is you increase their stress. They become more stressed out, and then they will sometimes shut off. So it's not good, right? So understanding how to reframe your child's natural state is so important, right? How about some child, like who here thinks their child is a bit stubborn? Yeah, okay, you see guys. Now stubborn is also not saying it's bad. Stubborn just means today they have high independence, which as a parent, I would love to groom them later on to be more independent, maybe wash dishes, so they can be independent to help you clean the house as well, right? So who here's child's a bit sensitive? Sensitive. Everyone here also say very sensitive. Also, your child is lazy and sensitive. Very good, man. Okay, sensitive just simply means they have very high empathy and EQ. I just now remember Yan Lu's video about his child. Right, his child is very high sensitive, very high EQ, very high empathy. Right, so there's certain ways where we need to protect the child. But these children are blessing. My youngest child is very sensitive, but he's so sweet to me and my wife. Right, so this is something that you have to hold them precious, cannot always scold them because they will shut down. Okay? And the last one are restless. Here very common. Who here's child is very restless? Let's admit it. Very restless one. You can same thing like I mentioned, knock the glass door, fall down and run again. Right? These people, they are restless. This child, it just means to say they are go-getters and they can really act faster. In the future, they be suitable to be entrepreneur. In my youth, I also very restless, and here I am. Right? So it's about how you reframe your child's natural state. Okay? And one thing is very amazing, right, guys? I want to tell you that remember I mentioned our genes we can work with them, and it can be controlled to a certain extent. Because over time, right, based on what we do as parents, some genes can be strengthened, but some genes can also be suppressed. So let's say, for example, if you have a sensitive child and you encourage them to express their sensitivity, to have more empathy, what is happening is as they grow up, right, there will be more nuance in their daily interactions with people. They will be able to catch nuances and maybe even read body languages much better than other people. And that's when I say that gifts are strengthened. But if let's say, for example, if you scold them, why is sensitive, right? Why you cannot act like a boy, right? Then they feel the hurt. And what happens is all their gifts will be suppressed. Right? So as a parent, we can do all this because we are their reality. Okay? And this effect of how using our decisions to control the child's outcomes is the term called epigenetics. And epigenetics, if you don't know, epigenetics means it's around your genes. Because even though your genes, your DNA cannot be changed, you can act around it, you can control the outcome. Okay? So with epigenetics, right, really how your child learn, play, eat, sleep, and feel, all these are within your control as parents. And what's even more amazing, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you know how to use this to your advantage, it will echo throughout the future generations. That means it doesn't just lie with your family line. It goes beyond your next generation, the following generation, all the way down line, right? So because our gene has a memory, and epigenetics is the one that embeds this memory into our biology, right? And the term for why this will echo through all future generations is this term called epigenetic inheritance. So you can go and Google it, you can go and AI it, right? And this is something that's very powerful. And if you ever thought of like why these days modern youths are a bit sensitive, a bit cannot take stress, who agrees with me? The kids these days, the Gen Zs, the Alpha Gen, they cannot take stress. Why? Because during our time, we pamper them too much. We never put them through enough hardship. We never train them epigenetically, right, to be resilient. So over time, over different generations, the genetic expression for resilience gets weaker and weaker. Because as parents, we never teach them that, right? And that's why these days kids, right, are getting, in a way, mentally a bit weaker. But there's still a cure. And what we do today, from today's talk, will determine how future generation can be better or can even go worse. Okay, so it lies in our hands. So epigenetic inheritance means it can pass on, you guys can pass down resilience, capabilities, mindset, even trauma to your children. And this is something I can tell you guys, once your child have their offspring is set in stone. So from now to when your children have their next generation is a time where you try to grow their resilience, their capabilities and mindset, and not the trauma side. Because trauma can flow through generations as well. Okay? Which later we'll be happy to share. So bear in mind, if nothing else from today's talk, right, just remember this. DNA is not deterministic. DNA is a multiplier. It's a multiplier for what you want in the future. It's a multiplier for your legacy. Right? It's also a multiplier for your health if you choose to go that path, right? And there are many things that DNA can do. And what really through DNA can reveal, what kind of information can reveal to you? It can reveal to you your personality, ladies and gentlemen. Like for example, how you resist violent behavior is partially linked to genes. I know most of you guys are married already, but if you're not married yet or you want to date somebody, before you marry him, you should get him to do a DNA test. If he has high violent behavior, maybe don't marry him, right? So even your empathy, just want to be mentioned for sensitive kids, empathy is linked to genetics as well. You see here, how we take stress is also linked to genetics. How we are disciplined and whether we are altruistic or not, whether we help another human being, all these are linked to genetics. But remember what I said? Genes can be strengthened, but it can also be suppressed. And as a parent, it's what we do that then strengthens certain genes or it suppresses certain traits. Okay? So beyond that, there's also nutrition. So nutrition are things like what your child needs to eat to grow up strong. Some kids, I can tell you, due to malnutrition, biologically they are supposed to be quite tall, but due to malnutrition, they are short. Why? Because they're not being fed the right things. And every one of us, or every one of our child, the nutrition requirements are different. Some of us need more protein. Some of us need more vitamin B. If we are able to identify as parents what our child needs to eat to optimize their biology, what is happening is then they'll grow up strong, they'll grow up fit, they'll grow up not sick, and they'll grow up being capable of many physical attributes. But if we don't know, you just eat McDonald's, then you know something will happen, right? Later on, and you fall sick and you pay money to the doctors. So fitness, this one I think we know we'll skip, but fundamentally for children, their fitness, their endurance, all these are, even the enthusiasm for sports, all these are linked to genetics. In the future, later, if you guys are interested, I will share a story about how Joseph Schooling understood his genetics, and because of that, he dropped out from his school, and then he became an Olympic champion. Right, Joseph Schooling. Okay, but they ask me later. Right, so then case studies. Okay, so I'll very quickly touch on a few case studies before then we move to the panel discussion. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is my family. That's my lovely wife and my two naughty kids. You can see from their faces, they're very restless really, right? Very naughty also. And I can tell you why I use that as an example is because both of them, at first I thought they had ADHD because they're so restless. They always run around the house and they cannot focus. Literally, their DNA test report says that they cannot focus. When I understood that, what happened was that instead of getting them to study very regularly, like 1 hour for each time, right, which they cannot focus, we broke down the study pattern to 20 minutes study, 20 minutes break, 20 minutes study. And then what we realized is that because we did it in a way that is natural to their biology, they can focus better. The short attention span, right? They can study, and when their grades improve, then our relationship also improve. And one thing I also find fascinating is that when I thought that one of my younger child is on the ADHD spectrum, and he actually did a clinical test, and he still says that he got a high level ADHD. In fact, for me, I also thought got a high levels of ADHD. What I found amazing was that in the DNA report for me and my child, I don't have ADHD. Biologically, I don't have ADHD. But then what happened, which we suspect, could be because when we grow up, we always play mobile phone, we always play TV, we play games, right? And we used to multitask so much. Literally, a lot of our expression for ADHD now is trained through growing up. But biologically, we don't have this risk of ADHD, but people don't know that. And imagine if I let my child be labeled as ADHD in school, how traumatic he will be in growing up. So all these as parents, I think we need to know. Okay, so the next one, this will be this lady called Erica. So it's a bit on the health side, right? So Erica has underreactive thyroid, clinically diagnosed. When she did a DNA test, she found out that she needed more iodine. And guess what? Because she needed more iodine, she took seaweed for 6 months, unsalted sea. And after 6 months, when she went back to see doctor again, her underreactive thyroid was normalized. And when she did a blood test, the levels was amazing, right? So that shows that just by eating according to our genes, what is happening is that our biology is optimized. A lot of these chronic illnesses may not even manifest. Imagine we have that for our children, right? The last one I'll share is Yi, my CEO and co-founder, right? Her blood type is very unique, right? So she has a very unique blood type, whereby she feels a bit fatigued sometimes when in the younger days, when she runs a lot, doing a lot of activities, right? But then when she did a DNA test, you can see from here, it shows that she needed more iron. And what she did was she changed her diet, she started to take more iron. So when she went for blood tests, what's amazing is that the vitality for blood cells just moved from unhealthy, right? That was before she changed her diet, to the vitality of a newborn. I kid you not. You can go to my LinkedIn, you can see under featured, right? Her blood, the ratings are out there. Again, imagine all this for your children. Okay?